that goes in a different place.
Hmm. So, first of all, how many years? I think we can start this. And for us to do anything. There.
Get out or finish. It's
Stop there. Start it again. And now it's two participants. So, this will be that.
One more time, Kev. Sounds good. And now I'm muted. Correct?
Yes.
Good.
When you're on YouTube, and you're on YouTube right now, right? Or no?
So, turn the volume all the way down.
That was your.
Sounds good. It is. Now I'm muted.
Sound check. 1, 2, 3. Check, check. Sound check. 1, 2, 3. That's
I'm not hearing anything. Can you guys hear me? I can't hear anyone.
We can hear you, Denise.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Hi, Denise. Stay tuned for a minute.
Okay.
Can you hear us now, Denise?
I can hear you fine. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Sure. So we're called to order 9 a.m. on Friday, June 21st, 2024, and a quorum of the board is present. I'm Mark Bradford, Chair of the Central Valley Water Board. I will introduce the other board members in just 1 minute. And Mindy, can you please begin by providing instructions for members of the public that plan to participate in today's meeting?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mindy Maxwell, and I am the clerk of the board. I will provide some information on how public participation will be organized for today's meeting. If you wish to make a verbal comment on one of the board items, or if you want to make a comment during public forum, you must be in person using Zoom webinar or calling in by phone. If you are currently watching the webcast on YouTube but wish to comment, please email agenda5@waterboards.ca.gov now and request a registration link. I will respond to the email with the link. Once the registration form is submitted, you will automatically receive the Zoom link via email. If you are on the Zoom webinar and wish to speak but have not registered, please virtually raise your hand and you will be called upon after registered participants have spoken. If you are using a computer or tablet, please click the raise hand button. If you are calling in on the telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand. If you want to speak and do not raise your hand, your chance to speak could be missed. If you are in person at the meeting and wish to speak, please fill out a blue card at the registration table and provide it to the staff person. Staff will call each commenter by name and then unmute your microphone. For those calling into the meeting via telephone, staff will identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. For the record, please state your name and who you are representing before you speak. This is especially important for those calling in to testify on an item. A 3-minute timer will be used. You will hear a bell when the 3 minutes are up. Additional time could be granted at the discretion of the board chair. Please speak from a quiet location to avoid background interference. I would also like to give a friendly reminder to our board members, presenters, and staff to please mute yourself when you are not speaking to avoid background noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Mindy. I'll now introduce the other board members as follows. We have Nick Ovdis from Sacramento. Denise Cadera from Allensworth is participating virtually. Elena Lee Reeder of also Sacramento. Art Baggett of El Portal. And again, I'm Mark Bradford from here in Sacramento. Nicole Morgan, State Water Board member, is participating in this meeting and will provide an update a little later. I will now introduce Executive Officer Patrick Palupa, who will introduce his staff. Before that, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ellen.
Ready, set, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Immediately across from me, we have Kennedy Knight with the Office of Chief Counsel. To my right, sitting in front of you, is Christina Shoup and JJ Baum, Assistant Executive Officers from the Fresno and Rancho Cordova offices, respectively. To my right is Jessica Yar with the Office of Chief Counsel. To my far left is Adam Lapitz, Assistant Executive Officer in the Rancho Cordova office. And our esteemed court clerk is to my immediate left, Mindy Maxwell. In the audience is Clint Snyder, Assistant Executive Officer in our Reading office, and a number of board staff. Back to you.
Thanks, Patrick. Are there any communications from board members since the last board meeting? No. Okay, none on this, in the meeting room. Denise, do you have anything?
Yes, I do have a few. Good morning, everyone. On the 25th of April, I hope, not I, but the Allensworth community hosted the Water Education Foundation tour. They joined us last year and then came again to the Allensworth community again this year. And then on the 23rd of May, I participated in a water webinar. This is Ideal, Inclusive, Diverse, Equitable, and Able Leaders. It's a research project funded by the Office of the UC President. This is at UC Irvine. And the Ideal concept is a timely, innovative initiative to identify gaps and enhance education, outreach, and training, hiring, and career placement of underrepresented groups in the California water sector. So it was a good session. We talked about how we could do better at recruitment and engaging underserved communities into the water field. And so I thought it was quite an informative opportunity to participate in the session. Also on the 19th of June, we did the Allensworth Progressive Association did a presentation on Allensworth history and its water issues that we've had over the years to the Water Blueprint organization. And then lastly, at our last meeting, we had the management zone discussion. We had the coalitions and EJ groups, and of course, the residents from impacted communities speak. And as I had mentioned at that meeting and several times, my passion for serving the disadvantaged communities and understanding their plight. I also want to acknowledge that the coalitions, from when I first got on the board, I was just amazed that there were coalitions working together for the good of protecting water quality. And I wanted to just acknowledge that the coalitions have done a tremendous job in
Thanks, Denise. I also participated in the UC Irvine Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Workshop, so I won't rephrase all that. On the 31st of May, there was a chairs meeting here in Sacramento. A lot of discussion about budget issues with the state deficit right now. Staffing, return to office, those types of issues were discussed at length. Michael Lawfer pointed out that there is now an approved process for quorums at board meetings. So through January 1st of 2026, if we have a quorum in person like we do today, the other members, if they're available, can participate remotely. So that we're in good shape here for another year and a half on that front. There was quite a bit of material presented about nutrients in both inland waterways and the ocean environment. I wasn't too clear on this. There's a wastewater needs assessment that will be held here in July, I believe, in Rancho.
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. Wastewater needs assessment is an ongoing, I believe, a 5-year project,
Yep.
but we're hosting some of the meetings here in this office of
Yeah.
the research team and other folks that are discussing that. And I believe there's an advisory committee that's been convened by the State Water Board to also discuss the issues. Huge needs within the Central Valley
Right.
and statewide.
Good. And then I'm going to defer. Patrick's going to talk about a few of the issues that were brought up. Each region presented 3 of their main initiatives for this coming year. And Patrick will describe the ones we had for Region 5. And then finally, there was some ongoing discussions about tribal beneficial uses, subsistence and cultural. So it was a really good meeting, a lot of content, good participation. So I really enjoyed being there in person. And then finally, I think Nick and I did the same thing. We both had to respond to the Senate Rules Committee questionnaire. Mine went in probably the same time on May 30th. So waiting to hear back on that. And that's all I had on that front. So with that, we're going to turn to Nicole. State Water Board member Nicole Morgan is here to provide an update on their activities. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Bradford and members of the board. It's good to be here in front of you today and welcome Member Baggett. It's good to see you. I missed you and down in Fresno, so welcome. So let's see, updates this board meeting. So the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, we had a couple of workshops and hearings. So for the Tule Subbasin on April 5th, staff held a virtual workshop regarding the proposed designation of the Tule Subbasin as probationary basin under SGMA. On April 8th, staff held an in-person workshop for Tule in Porterville. Board hearing will take place on September 17th. For Tulare Lake Subbasin on April 16th, the board held a hearing and designated Tulare Lake Subbasin as probationary basin pursuant to SGMA. We will also be down next week, I believe, for COEA. So we have a virtual workshop on Monday, and then we'll be down in the basin on Thursday for in-person. So those are all moving forward. So US EPA says first ever limits on PFAS in water on April 10th. The Biden-Harris administration issued the first ever national legally enforceable drinking water standard and protection standard to protect communities from exposure to harmful per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFAS. The final rule represents the most significant step to protect public health under EPA's PFAS strategic roadmap. So Hexchrome, I believe, I've reported on this several times. April 17th, State Board voted to adopt a maximum contaminant level, also known as MCL, of 10 parts per billion for hexavalent chromium, a cancer-causing contaminant. The new MCL will reduce affected California's potential exposure to hexchrome to 1/5 the current regulatory level. And then, ongoing, our staff are working on the Bay Delta Basin Plan amendments. And so we have ongoing workshops on it. So stay tuned for more. So there was a multi-day public workshop to discuss voluntary agreements, also known as VAs, on April 24th, 25th, and 26th as the update. The purpose of the workshop was for VA parties to provide detailed overview of the proposal, receive input, and answer questions from board members. And so that was, I believe and have heard, a very productive 3 days. And so we will continue to hold those workshops to receive input. Staff are working on all the questions that were asked during that, all the input, and are working on a new staff draft that will be coming out, I believe, later this summer. So are there any questions?
Apparently not. Thank you. You guys are busy as always.
Yes. So, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
And I will note that the question often comes up at all the Sigma meetings and other areas where I have speaking engagements, but we are actively coordinating the water quality piece for the Tulare and for the Kauai. Tule Lake and for Kauai are front and center, and we are working with the state water board's teams. There has been a significant reorganization at the state board to make sure that Sigma is basically an entire office, I believe, within the state water board to manage the probationary hearings and all the state intervention processes. So lots happening in that area. I don't envy you. I think we'll try and send somebody to at least the virtual meeting, if not the in-person meeting. Probably be a fly on the wall and hear what they have to say down there. But certainly there is a very strong nexus between what's happening with Sigma for groundwater supply and the water quality elements, and in particular, the monitoring elements that are crossing both the state and regional boards jurisdiction.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Okay, moving on to the public forum. If you are a person at the meeting and wish to speak but have not submitted a speaker card, please fill out a blue card at the reception table in the lobby. If you're on the Zoom platform and have not already registered but would like to speak during the public forum, please raise your hand now. Mindy, has anyone submitted a request to speak on any topic that's not on the agenda today?
We do have, excuse me, Kimberly Burns from EJ Gallo, but Kim has indicated she'll raise her hand if she wishes to speak.
Okay, and she hasn't raised her hand?
No.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now time for the executive officer's report. It's an information item only. Prior to each meeting, the executive officer works with the board clerk and the board's program managers to compile a report on the status of the board's programs, its staffing, and many different initiatives the board is working on. If you're a person at the meeting and wish to speak but haven't submitted a speaker card, please fill out the blue card at the reception table. And if you're on the Zoom platform and wish to speak but haven't registered, please raise your hand now. At this time, the Patrick is available to take questions on this report.
So I think for starters, we've got a couple of awards, and I will certainly do those. But I think for starters, I'd like to have JJ Baum share a couple words about compliance concerns at the Forward landfill. As you recall, it was a couple meetings ago that we adopted a new permit for Forward landfill, which is one of the largest landfills within our jurisdiction. There were some compliance issues noted during that hearing, and we went ahead and adopted the WDRs, which I think was absolutely appropriate, and pledged that our enforcement team would maintain a close eye on the landfill as it worked towards both compliance with an existing cleanup and abatement order and the new WDRs. I think JJ has a couple words to share as head of the enforcement team that was making sure that Ford complies with its regulatory obligations. And I also believe that we have Benjamin Wade from Republic Services here working with the landfill to ensure that they're actively trying to address all the compliance concerns at that facility. And so without further ado, I'll hand it over to JJ.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Chair Bradford and board members. The Ford landfill is one of the largest landfills that the Central Valley Water Board regulates. As a result, the types of waste they accept vary, and the issues are complex. The roughly 762-acre facility is north of the city of Manteca, a mile east of Highway 99, and is an identified disadvantaged community. The two most significant orders, as Patrick mentioned earlier, currently issued by the Regional Central Valley Water Board at the site are order number R5 2024-0002, which is the WDRs that were adopted in February, and also that address the modern landfill operations as a reminder, and then also the cleanup and abatement order R5 2017-0703 that addresses the historical landfill's legacy contamination concerns. The information below that I'll state is a brief update to the compliance efforts related to both the historical legacy contamination and current facility operations since the 2024 February Central Valley Water Board meeting. All information that I state is publicly available on GeoTracker, and a reminder that, for your information, GeoTracker is the electronic database our landfill team utilizes for site case files.
JJ, could you pull your microphone a little closer? Make sure everybody can hear you. Thanks.
Sure. So first I'll start with the legacy contamination compliance update. The landfill is under the 2017 CAO to address the migration of historical legacy landfill contamination moving north of the facility. The goal of that order continues to be to define the extent of a long time uncontrolled plume and implement corrective actions to address groundwater impacts. The landfill performs quarterly VOC monitoring of residential groundwater treatment systems in the area, and most recently submitted the report for the first quarter of 2024 in late April. Additionally, Ford Landfill continues to provide those residents with VOC impacted wells, the volatile organic compound impacted wells, alternate potable sources of water, that being bottled or treated water. Some required actions in the 2017 CAO were unfortunately delayed due to the COVID-19 outbreak and access limitations to the property north of the facility. There's a California Youth Corrections facility overseen by the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation that's north of the facility. But those limitations have since passed. The discharger has yet to fully install the required interim or final corrective action measures as required by the CAO. On March 18, 2024, the facility submitted an update to their implementation of the pump and treatment interim remedial action plan. Our expectation remains that all the requirements of the CAO will be met by Ford Landfill. During the February board meeting, we also discussed the recent identification of volatile organic compounds in newly identified locations. These identified VOCs are thought to be derived from a historical unlined portion of the facility, Austin Road Unit. In late 2023, a VOC trend was observed by regional water board staff, and a notice of release was issued to the facility. After being notified, the facility developed a draft evaluation monitoring program plan in response. On February 29th, 2024, the regional board issued a Water Code 13267 order that provided clarity on our expectations for that EMP or evaluation monitoring plan. 13267 order listed specific requirements for the EMP, including additionally monitoring efforts that more fully delineated the extent of VOC contamination, especially on the eastern side of the site, identification of proposed corrective action measures, public notification and outreach, and a schedule to complete such efforts. The facility submitted a revised EMP plan on May 9th, 2024, and our compliance and enforcement team are currently reviewing the document. Additionally, C&E staff or compliance enforcement staff have been meeting with neighbors and surrounding area, the surrounding landfill to answer their questions regarding the 29 February 2024 13267 order and the need for Ford Landfill to access their properties to install the monitoring wells associated with that order. So, and now I'm going to move on to the current landfill, the modern facility update with the WDRs that were adopted in February. So on Tuesday, 23rd January 2024, the discharger notified the Central Valley Water Board that hazardous waste had mistakenly been placed in the landfill. In response to the compliance enforcement staff requested the landfill isolate the 40 cubic yards of waste so proper testing of the materials could occur. The discharger elected to continue with normal operations without the isolating, profiling, removing that waste in question. Since the material is now buried without proper characterization, an NOV was issued by the Central Valley Water Board on April 3rd, 2024 for violating prohibition A1 of the WDRs. That waste remains at the landfill. While inadvertent acceptance of hazardous waste does occur at facilities, and similar incidents themselves do not typically create an imminent threat to health, it does encourage a closer examination of historical site efforts on this issue. On Tuesday, April 9th, 2024, compliance enforcement staff inspected the Ford landfill. During the inspection, staff observed waste containing spent medical materials that was exposed at several locations laying across the top deck as well as the northern side slope. On April 18th, 2024, a notice of violation was issued for failure to properly maintain daily cover over the buried waste, a requirement for operation. The NOV was also requested that the proper documentation be provided that demonstrates that the medical waste had been properly disinfected and sterilized prior to disposal. The discharger was able to provide that requested information and completely resolve the issue on May 6, 2024. On June 11th, 2024, to evaluate compliance with the April 18th NOV, the compliance enforcement staff did a focused inspection of the area of exposed waste. And while the waste had been covered, additional work will be necessary to demonstrate compliance with the WDRs. And compliance and enforcement staff will be preparing a response to that inspection. So I would like to thank our compliance and enforcement staff for their thorough efforts at the site, and continued diligence is needed to ensure that the requirements of the 2017 CAO to address legacy contamination is completed, and the modern facility continues to comply with the newly updated WDRs that was approved in February. Thank you.
Take any questions. Again, it's a large, complex facility, but we are continuing to put it under a microscope to make sure that they are doing everything that they are supposed to do to protect water quality out there.
Yeah, thank you, JJ. That was a good summary. I'm glad we're staying on top of it with regular visits and inspections, and that they're attempting to comply anyway with the historical WDRs and these NOVs and CAOs that you've issued. So thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have some follow-up questions. So with regards to the legacy landfill, so did you say that the landfill is in non-compliance with the CAO currently? Is that what I heard you say? That performance standards or timelines for remediative actions were not met?
The original timelines in the 2017 CAO have not been met. That is correct.
Was there a reasonable justification provided for that?
it occurred before the pandemic and the discharger was grappling with materials availability. That was one of the issues, but also the pandemic and then access to the northern property was an issue when I came on board in 2020 that also complicated the issue. But there are concerns with the timeline with how things have been occurring.
I mean, it's not because of the responsiveness of the landfill operator. I mean, is it, or is it, it sounds like it may have been justified, or is it an intentional non-responsiveness? That is concerning. I guess you may not need to answer that right now, but that's concerning.
Yeah, I'm part of the conundrum is I'm just presenting what's in GeoTracker, any kind of ongoing enforcement issues in the background. I am not delving into.
And with regards to the modern landfill, it sounds like this issue with the 40 yards of toxic waste. Again, you touched on it, but it sounded like we raised some concerns about it and asked or directed remediative action that was, it sounded like it was ignored.
Some testing was done, but it wasn't to the type and amount to what was expected for that type of issue.
So is there I'm sorry, there was a lot you covered. So just to be clear, is there an ongoing enforcement action relative to that particular issue as well?
We are looking into it, sir.
Okay. Okay. I know we can't get in depth on it further, but I appreciate that. But this is concerning, obviously. So thank you.
And again, we do maintain a separation of functions. So JJ's team will independently consider whether those violations are merit additional enforcement action. And certainly, I think the board got involved to try and clear up some of the access issues. It's a very large correctional facility that's north of the landfill, if I'm correct, is north of that landfill. And we're denying all access, and we needed to get in there to get some monitoring wells. And this is particularly during the pandemic. They prohibited all exterior folks from coming in there, and then the youth facility closed. And so I think those access issues are being resolved right now. As to the responsiveness, I think it's a little bit of both. We expect, at least the GeoTracker record says that the board expected more prompt compliance than was done. And I think they're working to rectify those problems.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. I think now we can bring up that part of the presentation. And this is what Chair Bradford mentioned. So as part of the chair's meeting, they tend to do this every year. They talk about what the regional boards, each one of the 9 regional boards, top 3 or 5 priorities. It varies from year to year. They asked me to pick 3. I certainly could have thrown 20 up there if we had the time, but these rose to the top 3 in my view, at least reflecting on what the board's direction has been. Next slide. So first and foremost, it's CV salts implementation, particularly the nitrate drinking water program and nitrate compliance program. Priority 2 just got underway. So those are the areas within orange. As I mentioned to the board previously, we issued notices to comply letters in December of 2023. That was about 2,000 of those letters, which is going to require the implementation of early action plans in early 2025. Those are the drinking water programs for wells that test above the nitrate compliance level. We actually know that some of the priority 2 areas are keying off of the work that was done in the priority 1 areas. For example, Valley Water Collaborative and some of the Kern County groups are already working on drinking water programs ahead of the deadline, essentially figuring out what they can do to do outreach and get the drinking water programs up and running as soon as possible, based off of the work that was done already in priority 1. In priority 1, in those red areas, we're working with the permitting teams, particularly in the irrigated lands program, dairy program, and non-15 programs, to make sure that we will have orders for the board's consideration that will essentially put enforceable nitrate compliance timelines on those programs within the next year and a half or so. Lots of engagement requirements between here and there, but we are doing diligent work to make sure that those are up and running. And in the red areas, there are very robust drinking water and drinking water well testing programs up and running. That's what you heard about in April. Next slide. Revision of confined animal orders. So we just heard from the State Water Board that we will be expecting a revised dairy general order this summer. They really mean it this time. Waivers regulated dairy discharges from 1982 until about 2003, when the legislature essentially sunset all existing waiver programs statewide. It was partially in response to the dairy program operating under a waiver and concerns about contamination from dairy facilities. In 2007, the regional board adopted its first dairy general order regulating existing milk cow dairies. And then that was appealed. That resulted in a 2012 court case on anti-degradation, essentially saying that the board had to bolster its anti-degradation findings and look more closely at the types of degradation that was caused by dairy facilities throughout the region. We quickly jumped on that order, revised the dairy general order, and issued a revised dairy general order in 2013 that was appealed to the state board. That 2013, it's been there a little over 10 years now. The state board is promising that this summer it will finally be addressing the petition that's been pending for the past 10 and a half years at the state board. That has ramifications not just for the dairy program, which represents about 1,100 to 1,200 dairies, but also bovine orders, which represent some of the stock projects. So they raise heifers for and calves for the dairies. And there are other orders as well, some feedlots that may be affected by the direction provided by the State Water Board. We had a series of ex parte meetings with the State Water Board about a year and a half ago where we were able to express our position on it. And the State Board is taking all that into consideration as they work forward to give us additional direction on what they want us to do with our 2013 order. It's long overdue. We've been at a standstill for a little while, waiting on direction from the State Water Board. And we'll welcome this order regardless of what's in it. It will at least tee off a discussion about one of the most significant water quality issues within the Central Valley. Next slide. The federal forested lands permit is a massive undertaking. This has been many years in the making. It covers about 10.9 million acres of federally managed forests within the Central Valley region. That is just about as big as our agricultural program in terms of the acreage. It will regulate vegetation management, transportation management, so roads, including legacy roads, recreational facilities, fire management and recovery, and restoration activities. Very, very large undertaking to really try and get our arms around some of the significant sources of non-point source pollution from federal forested lands within the region. The primary folks that this will regulate is the Bureau of Land Management, which owns a smaller portion of land, in the United States Forest Service, which owns manages the lion's share of this federal forested land within the region. So really, really big permit. We are planning to take it in front of the board in December. There's not a small amount of controversy around this permit, not necessarily because of this permit, but because similar efforts are also underway in regions 1, 6, and 3. And I know there's a little bit of controversy as to why there are 4 different programs moving forward. That was actually direction provided by the state board when they issued a draft permit in about 2015, told direction to the regional board to do this on our own. We have completed a very extensive programmatic EIR for this project. And I think we've got a nearly finished polished project that we should be able to kind of issue for public comment in the very near future and get this project underway. I think that's right. Clint, is it out for public comment just yet? It's out for public comment, yeah. So we're in the final stages of a very long effort to work and get some of these on-point sources under control. So those are the three big projects that kind of rose to the top as big things that we plan on accomplishing this next fiscal year, which begins in just about a week. And with that, I'll close that. Take any comments on the executive officer's report, and then go into a couple superior accomplishment awards.
Thanks, Patrick. I related to these three items you brought up, I mean, the meeting we had in April down in Fresno certainly brought out kind of the emotional aspect of the nitrate program in particular, with all the residents coming up to speak. So, you know, that was pretty powerful, I thought, and it was good to put that one on the table for the other chairs to be aware of. I'm curious on the federal forest permit, if it's out for public comment, when would you expect it to come to the board for approval?
Target is in December.
December.
Target is in
Okay.
December.
Yeah, that's a big one. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'll go up to the podium. My
Okay,
favorite part of the board meeting.
there we go.
All right, I saw John in the back there. Oh, yeah. I have to make you a little uncomfortable for all the, all the work that you do.
Wearing a jacket and it's.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. No. John, and just as kind of a personal note, whenever the compliance and enforcement team has their kickoff meetings or has a presentation, John is always one of the most down-to-earth, nuts and bolts, and very diligent kind of leaders who gives a very, very good assessment that I know sets an example not just for our teams, but for teams statewide. There's a lot of folks that come and learn from John. But without further ado, I will get into the language here proposed by his team. John is a water resource control engineer in the NPDES Compliance and Enforcement Unit. John started with the Central Coast Water Board in 2008 and transitioned to the State Water Board for about a year before joining the Central Valley Water Board in August 2019. John serves as the case manager for over 20 wastewater dischargers. He conducts compliance evaluation inspections at wastewater treatment facilities, reviews monitoring and technical reports submitted by dischargers, and prepares enforcement orders. John consistently exhibits patience and diligence in working with dischargers to ensure compliance. Since June of 2023, in addition to his regular responsibilities enforcing the NPDES program, John has taken the initiative to conduct a pre-treatment program inspection and sewer system audit for the city of Stockton. These inspections play a crucial role in safeguarding the water quality of the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta. However, they are not typically conducted due to the lack of funding for these programs. By going above and beyond to conduct thorough inspections, John identified and addressed deficiencies and issues within the city's pretreatment system and sewer collection system. This proactive approach prevented pollutants from industrial discharge flowing through the treatment plants without adequate treatment and potential sewage spills from the collection system, minimizing the risk of contamination to surface and groundwater resources. John consistently delivers work products that are not only meticulous and well organized, but also demonstrate his exceptional writing skills. Through accurate documentation and clear presentation, John effectively addresses the diverse range of compliance and enforcement issues. John carries with him a high level of professionalism and dedication. He is an exemplary employee and a highly valued member of the NPDES Compliance and Enforcement Unit. Congratulations, John.
Thank you very much.
I'll have you wait here for just a minute, another minute. I think the Mike Nielsen. Is he on? He's on. Just double checking. It's an NPDES award day. Mike, you there?
I'm here.
All right, fantastic. Mike is a water resource control engineer who has been working in the NPDES program since 2018, performing both permitting and compliance and enforcement duties. Mike has earned the Employee Recognition Award for his outstanding work balancing compliance oversight of a wastewater treatment plant that is experiencing severe operational issues, while at the same time drafting an individual NPDES permit and 2 ACLOs that address over $20,000 in mandatory minimum penalties. Mike's caseload includes several wastewater treatment plants that have ongoing compliance issues. Mike works closely with his dischargers and has a reputation providing top-notch assistance and support. During the past year, one of Mike's wastewater treatment plants has faced particularly challenging times with aging equipment and failing treatment components. Mike has worked tirelessly to facilitate communication between the discharger and the Division of Financial Assistance to ensure that planning grant funds do not go unused prior to fund expiration date. Mike scheduled monthly meetings with the appropriate parties to keep the project on track and consistently followed up in writing with the discharger and DFA to ensure clear communication and create accountability amongst the parties. In October of 2023, Mike was notified that the same community services district was losing its chief plant operator, the general manager, and board members. Mike quickly responded by bringing appropriate parties together to address the possibility that the facility would be without an operator for an unknown period of time. He communicated with the State Board Operator Certification Program, DFA Technical Assistance Branch, and the Office of Enforcement, notifying them of what was happening at the facility and inquiring if support from respective divisions could be provided to the district. In January of 2024, after over a month with no treatment plant operator operating the facility, the district hired a new director. Mike traveled to the site, a facility located in a remote mountain location and over 3 hours away from our Reading office, to meet with the new operator and go over the NPDES permit requirements and assess the facility treatment plant. Numerous issues were identified at the plant, and Mike quickly drafted a thorough inspection report that documented the facility deficiencies and helped the district's new board members understand the challenges they were facing. He continues to be in daily contact with the new operator and provide support and assistance where he can. We appreciate Mike's tenacity with this challenging site and situation. Mike demonstrates the qualities that we seek in employees at the Water Board. He cares about his facilities and the challenges that they face, works hard to protect water quality, and he stays present and active in the thick of a challenge. We are so fortunate to have Mike at the Central Valley Water Board and within the NPDES program. And Mike, I got to say, I did check out those inspection reports. I know I was kept abreast of some of the situation that was unraveling at that particular plant. And realistically, your communication with them and with your senior management and the senior management at the State Water Board helped them avoid what could have been a very, very catastrophic situation. Like many of our foothill facilities, these treatment plants protect much of the very, very sensitive headwaters in the state. Most of our very, very pristine waters. The operational requirements of these plants are very high. We demand a very high level of treatment to protect those headwaters, and really swung into action and went above and beyond the call of duty. I am very pleased to present you with the Superior Accomplishment Award today.
Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate the recognition.
All right. And for those of us here, let's take a quick picture for the board, and then we'll wrap this up.
Thank you, Patrick.
And I know I'll have a quiz for Nicole Morgan after the meeting to see if she knows which plant that was. I'm guessing from her time as NPDES program manager here, she absolutely knows which one we're talking about.
You're gonna keep us in suspense. Patrick, on the forest permit, I'd just like to put a bug in your ear to get a briefing on that later. This summer, there's no big rush, but I'd like
Absolutely.
to do a little deeper dive on some of the issues.
We are planning certainly a briefing for you and Sean as members of the forest work group, but we will also be preparing briefing documents for the entire board,
Okay.
appraising them of what we are doing and what the issues that are emerging within that permit.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. We're moving on to approving the minutes. Are there any edits or corrections to the April 19th, 2024 minutes? Hearing none. We get a motion to approve those minutes in a second.
So moved.
I'll second.
And Nick has moved and Elena has seconded. So Mindy, please call the roll.
Board Member Kadara,
Yes.
Board Member Lee Reader,
Aye.
Board Member Baggett,
Aye.
Vice Chair Abdus, and Chair Bradford.
Yes. Minutes are approved. Okay, we're moving on now to the uncontested calendar, agenda item 8. This is a time and place for a public hearing to consider uncontested items 10 through 13. If you're a person in the room and wish to speak and have not submitted the speaker card, please fill out the blue card at the reception table. And if you're on the Zoom platform and wish to speak but have not registered, please raise your hand now. Mindy, has anyone submitted a request to comment on any of the uncontested items?
No commenters.
No commenters. Are there any late revisions?
No late revisions.
Yes, sorry, yes, there are.
Okay.
There's one late revision. It's to D, the East Lake Sanitary Landfill. And we're going to remove some language regarding the use of friction sand under remove section D, unit construction specifications, finding 10.A.vi that states if necessary, friction sand or other material necessary to meet slope stability requirements.
Okay. Are there any legal issues to discuss?
No.
Okay, thank you. If we get a motion in a second for approval of the uncontested agenda items 10 through 13.
I'll move the uncontested calendar with the revision for D.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Close the hearing now. And Mindy, will you please call the roll?
Board Member Kadara,
Yes.
Board Member Lee Reader,
Aye.
Board Member Baggett,
Aye.
Vice Chair Abdus,
Aye.
and Chair Bradford.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I think we're going to take a very short break here before we move on to the next item, which is the Rain Ready presentation. So let's be back here at, say, 10 o'clock. Thank you. Thanks for coming. Yeah, it's a long drive for a couple hour meetings. Yeah, short one.
Yeah, I was gonna tell them I'd love to be involved in that forestry stuff. I
Yeah.
did the first general order. I negotiated that whole thing. State forest administration. It's just- forestry is-
They have to deal with 4 different orders and stuff.
And they don't have a lot of staff. You're getting less and less staff instead of more.
Yeah, and I mean, they have 95% of the lands in our region, probably, I don't know the other regions.
Well, half of it was counties, right?
I was curious, the Park Service wasn't on the list. Covered by this too?
No. Park is-
They do different, they don't have.
Well, the park doesn't have, they don't do any. Well, they do, they've been sued for some of the prescribed fire.
Yeah, I was gonna say they do this control.
And for log, they've been doing a lot of logging.
Yeah.
Hazard trees.
Right, hazard trees. Yeah, but not on the scale.
I'll tell them it's an issue. My graduate. is fire.
Oh, yeah, you need to be in on this for sure.
Been dealing with the feds for so long.
There's a
This is the
state,
court reporter. Can anybody hear me?
It's a border committee. Terry O'Brien, friend of mine, chairs.
If you can, I would just suggest that you mute the room.
Patrick Wright's the guy on staff.
Yeah, I gotta tell you. He's involved with this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully we get a briefing before it all comes to.
Well, this Tahoe is this real mess. When I first was appointed, the regional board wasn't letting anybody cut any trees. And then the whole thing burned up, including the EO's house.
Oh, yeah.
Harold Singer's house.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I know
All of
you
a sudden they changed their attitude real fast.
Well, Yosemite got a lot of heat for their controlled burns, but they also kind of set the standard, right, for how to do it.
Yeah.
They're aggressive. Excuse me. Okay, we're going to reconvene in a minute here. Did that go on? Yeah. Hello. Oh, there we go. Yeah, we're going to get started again. Okay, our next item and really our last item is a Rain Ready presentation. And we're going to hear this presentation by Karen Cowan, Executive Director of the California Stormwater Quality Association. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Bradford, members of the board. My name is Karen Cowan. I'm the Executive Director of the California Stormwater Quality Association. And joining me today is Joseph Draper, who's a Program Manager with CASQA. I want to start with a thanks to Patrick Palupa, who invited us to come here today. And I would say this is a great example of what we do and a lot of the benefits of partnerships. So we had actually invited Patrick and a bunch of the executive officers from the regions to our January meeting to talk about sort of what you all, I think, talked about recently, like what are the region priorities and, what do people need to know? And the fruit of that discussion was an invitation to come here to you today to talk to you about Rain Ready California. So I can control from here. Okay. So a little bit about sort of who we are and our origin. So we started in 1989 as the Stormwater Quality Standards Task Force, very great government name and direct to the point. So that was when the first stormwater permits were going to be issued. And the water boards, as well as the people who are going to be regulated, everybody said, well, none of us know how to do this because it hasn't been done before. So we were kind of this middle think tank ground working with the permittees as well as the state to figure out how one even would construct a stormwater permit. That task force continued on with this lovely name until about 2002, when we became a nonprofit organization as the California Stormwater Quality Association. And then 2021, I call it sort of CASQA 2.0, and everything I'm going to talk to you about from here on out, but sort of a more focused version of sustainable stormwater management. But the big thing I want to emphasize in all versions of who we've been as an organization, the culture of collaboration, cooperation, and problem solving underpins every version of who we've been as an organization and will be as an organization. So our mission as a nonprofit is on behalf of California stormwater permittees. We advance sustainable stormwater management protective of California water resources. And when we came up with our mission statement, I think it was around 2019, actually, we came up with our first mission statement. There's a lot of work that went into each and every single one of those words. So the word sustainable includes environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, and social sustainability. And the last part, the protective of California water resources, is very, very, very important to us. Obviously, that's your mission as well. So that's who we are and what we live every day. So our members, we have a bunch of members. We have what we call regular members. These are folks who hold a stormwater permit, so they're regulated. The traditional municipal folks, cities and counties are the prime membership I'd say we have, but there's a lot of organizations. Stormwater winds up impacting everybody. My practical answer, and people say, what is stormwater? I say it's the world we live in, which means it kind of impacts at some level everybody. So we also have a lot of state agencies that are members, like Caltrans, state parks, university colleges, schools. Water districts themselves are regulated by stormwater, as are wastewater agencies, the utilities, and then construction and industrial side. Then we have what we call affiliate members. These are folks who don't hold a stormwater permit, but want to be part of the solution building. So consulting firms, conservation organizations, other nonprofits, and the vendors. So collectively, we represent through our members over 34 million people in California, and we communicate weekly with well over 2,200 members and regulators. So we have EPA and the water boards also who are on our distribution lists. So at a statewide scale, rolling that up, that's a lot of folks working together, which can be very powerful to get people working together. Again, over 34 million Californians. That equates to at least 95% of Californians in a phase 1 community and 61% in a phase 2 community. All right, so that's who we are at a conceptual level. This is sort of who we are in the work that we do. So we updated our strategic plan just at the end of last year in October. And our strategic plan has 5 key pillars that, again, are the structure of everything that we do. What we do is we lead, engage. This is a great example on the engage side of it. Educate, support implementation. That's basically tools and resources for people implementing their programs, and increasing our own organizational capabilities. So that lead area is so big that we have our own strategic document in and of itself, the vision for sustainable stormwater management. And that's the one I'm going to talk to you about today because that gets us to Rain Ready California. So this vision document was last updated in October of 2020. And there are 4 key pillars here. I talk about them as legs of a stool, legs of anything that all need to be together for you to sit down, that if one of them's not there, the whole thing doesn't work. So they are all very interrelated. We have 4 principles and I'm going to walk you through them here. But before I actually do that, I do want to go back again to collaboration and partnerships. This is built into our vision, that this is not something we as CASCO are doing on behalf of everybody. This is something we all do together. And there are so many of us out there working on similar goals, and working together is how we advance our solutions. So on the collaboration side, again, with the water boards and EPA, we work very closely with them in partnership. A lot of the other state agencies, stormwater, now our solutions go beyond just the water boards. We work with DTSC, DPR, the Ocean Protection Council, and DWR. We work with the state assembly, the state senate, the governor's office. We work with other membership associations, CASA, the League of Cities, CMUA, CSAC, and our scientific community, folks like Sacramento State, OWP at Sacramento State, SFEI, and SQUIRT. Okay, so for our vision, we have 4 key principles. The first one, I call it sort of the things you do, our projects and programs. So what we're trying to advance under this part of our vision is maximizing stormwater capture, minimizing pollution through true source control, and BMP effectiveness. So the water supply strategy, I'm sure you're all very familiar with that. That was released by the governor's office. This is a very big achievement for us, is a great example of all of us working together. So this is from the governor's office, but definitely part of what we've been advocating for, and that is that stormwater capture is a huge part of a sustainable future for California. Another example is the California Water Plan that was just updated. There's a resource management strategy, again, specific to stormwater to help advance those goals. And some work we did ourselves recently, we did the socioeconomic value of urban stormwater capture. The goal of this was to actually put some dollars behind it, rather than just qualitatively saying, hey, aren't these projects good to do? They have other benefits. Happy to share a link for this report if you're interested, but the key takeaways from this were that it's very, very economically advantageous, that the benefits, just the socioeconomic benefits, so not even water supply, not even flood control, but it returned to your community $1 within first 1 year. So if you had, say, a $10 million project, you would get $10 million of benefit to your community within that first year, which is really unheard of. It's usually a long lead time before you get those benefits back. And then we have some on the source control side. So for us, what true source control means, and is a big reason why I wanted to come here today, and thanks to Patrick for the invitation, is that solving a problem before it becomes a problem, right? So a lot of the world we do, and sometimes, in stormwater, you go out to receiving water and find a problem and say, okay, now here's a regulation for stormwater. What we try to do is, well, the stormwater itself is not the problem. Why is there something in there in the first place? So these are some examples here. Plastics, pesticides are great ones, right? So stormwater is not generating plastics, it's transporting it. So if we're going to solve our trash and plastics problem, we need to figure out why we have one and solve it. Because scooping the trash out, it's like the last line of defense. It's not the solution. Same thing on the pesticide side. If we have aquatic toxicity, why do we have aquatic toxicity, and figuring out on the regulation of the pesticide before it becomes a problem. So we, again, work closely with DPR and their sustainable pest management plan. We have a program called Our Water, Our World, which many of the folks that you regulate are actually members of. And if you go to some of your Home Depots, you might see it on the shelf. It's supposed to hopefully make people make a better decision and inform them and educate them when they're at the store going, oh, shoot, I've got an ant problem. What do I do? Okay, the second part of our vision is about permits, regulations, and legislation. Another reason why I'm here today, right? So if we have all these big goals and the folks who are making decisions on permits or policies, regulations, legislation, whichever it may be, if they're not in sync, then we can say, here's all the things we want to do. And if what we're required to do is out of sync, then we're not going to do the things we think we're going to do at its core. So for us, when we talk about stormwater permits, making sure they are solution focused. So again, we're getting to what are we trying to achieve? What are the things that we do to help us achieve those goals? From a legislation perspective, everything we do in the legislative space is all about those things I just talked about, maximizing stormwater capture, minimizing pollution through true source control, and funding to do that, which is the next thing we'll talk about. And then from a statewide perspective, we've identified 4 water quality priorities. And for us, one of the big light bulbs I've had in implementing our vision is if you have something that's a statewide problem everywhere, your solution is probably a statewide solution. It's probably not a water body by water body solution. So, what are those, again, bigger, broader solutions that are going to get you to a problem if it's at a statewide scale? So our third principle here is public education, and that's what Rain Ready California is about. So we're going to focus on that here in a second. But the big message is our goal here is to increase support for solutions and also for funding of those solutions, and having everyone recognize that stormwater is a resource rather than a waste. And our fourth principle is funding. So we can say all of these great things, the things we want to do, but if there isn't money behind it, then unfortunately we can't move them forward. So there are, for stormwater, because of Prop 218, most communities don't actually have a dedicated fee. So our goal is to help get dedicated funding, because people need money that they can plan to build the projects going forward. You also need dedicated funding to tap into supplemental funding. Both grants and other opportunities, the state revolving fund, require you to have money to get money. So we can try to expand those pots as much as possible, but all of them really are important to go forward to get funding to work. So one example is ACA 1, which theoretically is on our ballots in November, but there was just another constitutional amendment introduced last week that might not let that fly anymore for stormwater. So I won't go into the legislative side, but went from Yahoo to, oh, shoot. Here's a handout that we have when we're advocating for things like the climate bond, which is also happening right now, quite literally. June 27th is the legislature's deadline. So this is a handout that we have to say, hey, look at these great projects. We should be funding them. And we have a current priority to do a California needs assessment. So I heard you talking about the wastewater needs assessment. So we think that we need one for stormwater, and we intend to work with the water boards to come up with a framework of what that would start to be. So that way we can get our arms around, rather than we need a lot of money, to this is the money we need and this is why we need it, a little more specifically. All right, so the reason I went through the whole vision is because if I talk to you about Rain Ready California, you kind of have to understand the whole vision of what we're trying to do, because again, it's all super, super integrated. So back here to put the public education portion. So when we started out implementing this path, trying to get our own head around, well, what does it mean for stormwater to be a resource, and what are we trying to achieve? And locally for me in my own community, we had a project. It was within a mile of my house. They had a grant from State Water Board to go put in a stormwater capture project. They had the land to do it. They had a permit requirement that they were going to meet. This was all great. And the local community said, oh, heck no, we don't want this project. This is toxic waste that you're trying to put into my community. And I was like, well, wow, we've done a really great job over time convincing everybody that stormwater is this scary thing as opposed to this resource, right? So the blowback in the community was so bad, they actually had to give the grant back to the state, and they did not build the project. And we started hearing a couple other stories throughout the state of some similar things happening. So we said, we need to change what people know about stormwater, about rain, and that these are good things that we should be doing. So that's sort of where we started. And then we did focus groups. We polled our own members. We did all of this fantastic work. It took a couple years of various different strategies and documents. So I'll skip over all that fun part for you and get to the good part, which is the end conclusion here. So what we did learn from people is when you talk to the general public and we stop talking to ourselves, we have to talk differently for people to really understand what we're talking about. So if you say to somebody stormwater, they might not have any idea what you really mean. Honestly, ask people who work in stormwater to define it, and they're going to give you a different definition every time too. But what we did learn is people understand the word rain. And that is what stormwater is. It is our rain. And honestly, working with the legislature, trying to explain in an elevator speech why we need money, why we need projects. Rain here, good. Rain bad there. That doesn't make a lot of sense. Rain is good. We just all went through a big drought. Surely we'll go through another one rather soon, right? So the more we can think about rain and what we want to do with rain and the message we want to give people, the better. So I'll give you our big tagline here. And basically it takes all that stuff I talked about in the vision And it boils it down into a very, very simple, powerful message. Rain Ready California. And our tagline is protecting and collecting water for our future. So if all of that stuff, hopefully you can take out of here today, if you can remember Rain Ready California and protect and collect, I think I've done my job, because that's literally everything we're trying to accomplish here at CASCWA. So that's the big visioning part. I'm going to turn it over to Joseph Draper. He's actually the program manager running Rain Ready California, and he's going to walk you through our brand new, this is first release of its kind publicly, our public education website.
Cool. Thank you, Karen. And good morning, Chair Bradford and board members. My name is Joseph Draper, program manager with CASCWA, and I have this wonderful opportunity to share with you our Rain Ready California campaign. So we've actually developed a website for our campaign. Let's see if I'm able to click on it here. Ooh. Is there a way to get around this?
So close.
So close.
I will say I am looking at it on my tablet here, and the website looks great.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think it would be really good to share the website if possible.
Just cast it. Just cast it. As long as you have Wi-Fi, you can cast it.
I don't think I can. Yeah.
Well, that would be a struggle if the state water board went along with our.
I know. Oh, yeah, he's got it.
We're gonna try a 5-minute break here while they try and get around this one.
You know,
Any way that you can broadcast.
Yeah, it has to go through this system.
Security.
oh,
Love that two factor.
Yeah, right.
I'm surprised that hasn't popped up.
You just do your training.
Yeah, I did.
I do have backup slides.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I think we're committed to this now. so.
If Nick joins. Yeah, it's like we're just trying to figure it out, but we may need you.
Somebody on Zoom share. I mean, like somebody.
Like, could Nick join the Zoom?
Oh, that is thinking.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to figure out. Yeah.
Oops.
I tried to, it doesn't work for me either. I can't. I can't. Yeah. This is apparently something we should try out before we
work on this, huh?
Jessica, why would you do that? Why would you?
It's all my fault. Always blame the lawyers.
I got your iPhone. Click on this particular.
I will guide you through the website.
It probably works at home. It just.
It is mobile capable.
Do you want back this slide?
Yeah. All right. We are almost there. They've got it on a computer and are about to share it on Zoom. Lots of thanks to the IT team here.
Famous. Yeah, I want to go there. You ready?
Just about. The good thing is when we solve this one, it means that all the computers around the state board and regional board should be able to access this website. So. So maybe we just step through the slides that you have. They're still working on it.
Let me start this. So yeah, we're going to continue with some of the backup slides just in case this happened.
Right. Okay, sorry for the delay there. You use the backup slides. We can all check this out later, I'm sure, though, on our own computers.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
so I'll continue. So we do
Okay.
have backup slides here just in case this was happen. But we did create this Rain Ready California website as really a visual tool to communicate what Rain Ready California is all about. It's really our public facing website. We've included a Google Translate function as well as an accessibility plugin to try to bring it to as many people as possible. And so what Rain Ready California represents is this transformational shift in our relationship with rainwater. And it's really about valuing rainwater as a resource. And so how do we do that? Well, we do that by protecting and collecting water for our future, right? By protecting and collecting our rainwater, we begin to value it as a resource. So go through our slides here. Rain Ready California has many benefits when we get Rain Ready. So some of the benefits we have more water for California. When we begin collecting and developing the infrastructure related to getting Rain Ready using like natural systems to recharge our groundwater, recharge our groundwater aquifer, augment our water supplies, maintain environmental flows, we begin to have more water for California. We must also, though, protect our water because we need to ensure that it's not compromised for those uses. We can also have beautiful and healthy public spaces. So when we protect our water, we're also protecting our local communities. And what's often associated with Rain Ready projects, Rain Ready collection projects, are open spaces and park amenities. So by getting Rain Ready, we also have this benefit of beautiful and healthy public spaces. We could have resilience to extreme weather. As we know, climate change is causing more frequent and more intense storms and droughts. And by getting Rain Ready, we could develop the infrastructure to have a solution for the changing climate. We will also have habitat for plants and animals. When we protect our water, we're really protecting our wildlife and the types of infrastructure that's built can maintain our ecosystems. So these are some of the Rain Ready benefits. Let me see how these slides were planned out. So what I'm going to do, so I've covered what type of benefits occur when we get Rain Ready. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through what it means to protect our rain. I'm going to go through 3 case studies of what it looks like to collect our rain. And then I'm going to go to what you can do. So when we talk about protecting our rain, these are really the solutions so that we could get Rain Ready. And so what does protecting our rain mean? Protecting our rain means protecting this limited and valuable source of water before the rains even start, right? We don't want to wait until it rains. We want to think proactively about what are some of the issues we're facing and trying to find solutions at the right time. How do we do this? Well, we do this through smart policies and everyday actions that could help keep our water safe and clean and improve the health of our communities. What's important to note is that we're facing some really complex environmental challenges. And these challenges aren't necessarily something that's solved at the local scale. And they must be solved perhaps at the statewide or global scale. And so the solutions that we need to be at the correct scale. So some of the ways we think we could protect our rain are through laws. So what I'm going to go through are a couple state and local laws that attempt to protect our rain. So as far as state laws, we have SB 54, the Plastic Pollution Prevention and Packaging Producer Responsibility Act. This was passed in 2022 and it aimed to create a circular packaging economy where it placed responsibility on the producers of single-use plastic packaging to take care of their packaging material, reduce their waste, rather than putting this responsibility on the downstream user. So we believe that this could have some really positive impacts on reducing our waste, reducing litter, and protecting water quality. So this is the type of solutions at the statewide scale that are appropriate. We also have SB 356, the California Motor Vehicle Brake Friction Material Law. This was passed in 2010 and aimed to reduce copper and other toxic substances out of motor vehicle brake pads. As of 2021, approximately 60% of the motor vehicle brake pads you could buy on the market are copper-free. And this has translated into an estimated 28% reduction in copper entering our waterways. So again, this is another type of solution where we found that copper, ubiquitous in the environment, has this source of motor vehicle brake pads, and we had a solution here that had to happen at a statewide scale. We then have SB 270, which is the single-use carry-out bag ban. This went into effect in 2016, and it practically eliminated single-use plastic bags from retail establishments. Again, and then they found that in coastal cleanups that there has been a significant reduction in the amount of single-use plastic bags collected as a result of these types of this type of law. And so sometimes state laws are quite effective. Sometimes local laws can be effective as well. The Tahoe region has been quite innovative in this space. In South Lake Tahoe, they're implementing a plastic water bottle ban, and in Truckee, a 25-cent to-go cup container fee. All of this is to reduce waste and reduce litter that ends up in our waterways, right? So these are just a few of the types of laws that can protect our rain. So now I'm going to move over to our collect aspect. So that is our approach for protecting our rain. But just as important is the types of modern infrastructure of what we talk about when we collect our rain. And what's important here to understand is that Rain Ready California is a statewide campaign, and rainwater collection is going to look different in different places throughout California. So again, some of the benefits that we could get with this type of modern infrastructure is restoring our groundwater, irrigating parks and public landscaping, creating these beautiful public spaces, and prevent or reduce flooding. So what I have highlighted here is the Fresno Metropolitan Flood Control District stormwater basin. They call it Oso de Oro Lake Park because they have a rainwater collection stormwater basin, but they've integrated a public space as well. So they actually have a playground there where the public can enjoy. And so these are the types of rain ready benefits that we could see. So I want to go through about three case studies that really show this type of infrastructure. So again, the Fresno Metropolitan Flood Control Basin, stormwater basin system. So they use some particular techniques, primarily ponding basins. They have over 150 ponding basins throughout the cities of Fresno and Clovis. They utilize pipelines and dams, and they get a particular set of rain-ready benefits. They have recharged groundwater supply, enhanced recreational opportunities, enhanced community health, and then protection from flooding. So this is what they do in Fresno. San Mateo takes a different approach. They have what's called their Sustainable Streets Master Plan, and they've actually integrated rainwater collection a little bit more directly through the urban environment. So along their streets and roads, you could find these types of green streets projects that you see here. And they use different techniques to fit their community. So they utilize rain gardens, curb extensions, stormwater planters, impervious paving. And so some of the rain-ready benefits that San Mateo gets from these types of projects are improved water and air quality, urban green space, and reduced heat island effects, as well as climate resilience. So it's a really interesting project that they have in San Mateo. The next case study has to do is in Los Angeles. It's called the East Los Angeles Sustainable Median Stormwater Capture Project. And what they've done here is they've taken a residential median and they transformed it into a rainwater collection system. As well as a community asset where they have some open green space, some recreational opportunities that the public can enjoy. And they use different techniques than both Fresno and San Mateo. What you find here is they utilize infiltration dry wells to recharge their groundwater aquifer, they utilize bioswales as part of this project. They put in drought-tolerant landscaping and installed over 300 new trees. And so some of the rain-ready benefits that they've obtained are improved water quality, increased local water supply, enhanced community spaces for recreation. So it covered some of the rain ready benefits of when we get rain ready and the types of what we can do by by protecting our rain through some of those solutions related to state and local laws. And then what types of infrastructure we want to be building in the future by covering these 3 case studies. So now I'm going to move on to what you can do. So it's important to recognize that getting rain ready is going to take some work, but we have some good examples to pull from. So all this is on the Rain Ready website. And so it's really a resource where when we're thinking about how can we get rain ready, what can we do? What does this look like? Well, we know of the strategies to protect our rain. We know of what rainwater collection, the types of infrastructure we're looking at. So, now it's what can you do? Well, the first thing is to support rain ready policies. The laws and regulations that protect our rain are really critical, but they need the public support. Additionally, rain ready projects are being implemented throughout California, but they also need at least 3 things. They need support from the public, they need funding for that type of infrastructure, and they also need the right incentives to ensure those are the types of projects to be built. So members of the public can, go to community meetings, voice their support. They could vote on ballot initiatives for the funding of this type of infrastructure and these types of policies. Additionally, there's just everyday actions folks can take. So we could reduce pesticide use. Karen mentioned the Our Water, Our World campaign at participating hardware stores and garden centers. You can find a Our Water, Our World logo to identify less toxic pest control products. So you could reduce your own pesticide use. So that's definitely a everyday action. We could say no to single-use plastic, simply reduce the amount of waste that we're generating. We could put litter in its place. When we find litter on the ground, we can make sure we dispose of it properly. And we can make rain-ready home improvements, whether it's a rain barrel, a cistern, or installing some drought-tolerant landscaping. So this is what Rain Ready is all about. I'll turn it back over to Karen if there's anything else you'd like to cover. But I'd encourage you to take a look at our website. It's very visually different and nice. Thank you.
And it is running on a computer back there. We just can't get it hooked up, unfortunately. It does look pretty cool.
It's a big tease. Everybody's going to be, so
Oh,
what's this
absolutely.
website? I guess I just want to end with, I think we've started to turn the corner. A lot of light bulbs I've seen go off in a lot of big decision makers' heads over like why we should be capturing our rain when it comes, right? The more we can't do it everywhere and under every circumstance, but where we can, we should be doing it. The next light bulb I'm hoping everybody gets is the protect side, right? That, and again, stormwater is not this horrible thing we want to get rid of. We want to protect it even before it rains. So like, what are these things we can do? What are the true source control actions? And I think that's actually the very line of thinking that in the meeting with Patrick, when we were having this conversation, my question to him was, you all issue the phase 1 permits at the regional level. So how do we get this true source control concept really baked in? Because if that's not in the things that make you do things, it gets skipped over. And that just, it seems like a really critical part. So I guess as, thinking, bringing it home to just you as a general member of the public, but also you as a member of the water board, just remembering that protect portion of it and the true source control side, I think would be my final takeaway message there. And we're happy to answer any questions.
First of all, thank you. It was just an excellent presentation, even without all the, without the connection to your website. And I think, your choice of a headline calling it Rain Ready California really works. Sounds way better than Stormwater Ready California. So good effort there. I was curious, you mentioned phase 1 and phase 2 communities at the beginning. What are those? What defines a phase 1, phase 2 community?
Yeah, that's the regulatory definition. So there's the largest communities. So the phase 1 permit, which I know you're working on right now. And then the phase 2 is issued by the State Water Board for the smaller communities at the state scale.
So it just relates to how big the community is. Yeah. Okay.
Well, Sort of.
Sort of, yeah, there's probably some
It's-
wrinkles.
Yeah.
It has its roots in how the program was rolled out when the US EPA adopted the stormwater regulations. I think it was 1989.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so trust me, I hear this an awful lot and folks that we work with, that there's a lot of phase one communities that as a city they're really a phase two community and they have the same challenges a phase two community does, but they're in a phase one permit. So theoretically, it's about the size of your community.
Just a couple questions for an update. So where are we at with air deposition? I mean, when I left the board now well over a decade ago, we were just starting to move. Air deposition of pollutants was a huge problem. Like in Burbank, we had a TMDL because of stormwater runoff from a parking lot,
Mhm.
which had nothing to do with, it was just a big area that got a lot of, have you made any progress on that? The state
the
air
first-
board refused to deal with it.
You're the first person who's asked me that question in a really long time, and it's something I think about, right? So
Huge deal.
I would say it's a good practice for all of us to get into when we're like, we have a water quality problem, is to ask ourselves why, right? Or if it's, not even just beyond wastewater or stormwater, like, but why is it even there in the first place? And in the beginning of my career, air dep was something that was talked about a lot. And I don't think we've talked about it a lot since then. So I think it's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that answers that one.
Yeah.
We're, also numeric effluent limits for stormwater.
Uh-huh.
I could ask Patrick too, I guess, but I don't know where, I know where that was and it was thrown out. I don't know where it's at these days.
So some different regions approach it differently. I would say, Patrick can fact check my answer on this one here, but I think where TMDLs were adopted, particularly how the TMDL was written, is where you find if there are numeric effluent limits in stormwater permits where they pop up the most. So in the LA region, I think they have the most numeric effluent limits because of the volume of TMDLs and because of how they were written.
Yeah.
It does wind up having some impacts. So right now there's a commercial, industrial, institutional permit that the LA Water Board is working on for 2 distinct watersheds. And they're trying to come up with a regulatory approach that incentivizes stormwater capture. And what we're finding is that there's a potential rub because of the numeric effluent limits. They're just designed differently in the municipal permit, right? So in the municipal permit, it says, this is how we've decided whether or not you're going to attain compliance at this point on a number. And if you have an upstream discharger and you say, but what we really want to incentivize is water in the ground, which we really should,
right,
they're still liable for that number downstream. So the upstream person, right, could be in compliance and doing what we want them to do by putting water in the ground. But because there's numeric effluent limits, that liability kind of stays. So I think those are the big picture questions I think we're going to be asking ourselves as we issue and talk about other permits, is what are the outcomes we want to generate and what are the different dials we need to turn to have those outcomes come together.
And I guess that goes into my third question, especially with the current, resurgence of E. coli issues. And from my past experience especially with Southern California beach E. coli issues, it's the lack of flow in seasonal flushing that is clearly causing a lot of estuary problems and a lot of problems in all of our rivers. I think even in the Central Valley, because there's nothing, if you capture all the stormwater, there's nothing to flush out the estuaries, the bays, the eddies. So I guess I would encourage your research think tank, and it's an unintended consequence, but somehow it's got to be addressed, because it's setting up an impossible conundrum for regulators like the Regional and State Water Board.
It's an excellent point. So in our vision, which one of the actual things we have in there is addressing this very question. And that's why it's consciously phrased as maximize stormwater capture and not just capture every raindrop everywhere all the time, because some places you might not want to for a host of different reasons. But that is absolutely one of the rubs, is we find that in so many different contexts, like, well, if you divert this water and it goes into the ground, there's been this ecosystem that's been developed downstream, and now it's almost like an ecosystem water right in a way, right?
Right.
It's,
But yet we want conjunctive use.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and
why you guys get paid all the big money and make all the big decisions.
Especially in the San Joaquin Valley where it's in Tulare Basin where we've got problems with groundwater. But if you put it there, then it's not in the streams and then.
I think, to kind of step back and to look at least in my view, what probably the three big state policies that came down that affect a lot of the stormwater agencies and our permitting perspectives in no particular order. We did have toxicity amendments. So the types of toxicity testing that's done, it has changed. And that was mandated by the state board a couple of years ago. There was also a statewide trash amendments that, I think that there are opportunities there, but there are certainly some drawbacks as well, where it imposed a priority to deal with trash in a specific manner through full capture or full capture alternatives. That was also adopted by the state board. And I think some of our communities, including the city of Sacramento, is put forward essentially proposals to potentially change that because they're seeing a lot of trash load come into the watersheds, not necessarily from the MS4s through stormwater, but through, say, the encampments of unhoused people that are outside the jurisdiction of the MS4. So we're continuing to advocate for some changes to that. And then, we also had ocean plan and inland surface water plan amendments for E. coli that changed some of the metrics by which E. coli was judged. But I think, Karen is absolutely right. The numeric limits and the decision, decades ago, partly informed by a consent decree that LA got into to adopt a number of TMDLs, really constrains the flexibility in dealing with stormwater issues. And so that's one of the main concerns that were dealt with. Maybe it was a good idea at the time, but some of the challenges continue forward with those TMDLs, because once they're baked into the basin plan, it's very, very difficult to undo them and very, very difficult to come with alternative strategies that might be a little bit out of the box. And I think our IT team got Rain Ready California up and running, much thanks to the scrambling behind the scenes. That is an excellent effort by the IT team to make this happen. So
Well,
I don't know if you want to take a minute or two to look at that, but that's kind of the summary. Board Member Baggett, and again, a trio of very significant state policies, somewhat constrain the regional board's discretion in how we do certain things. Again, there's benefits to that. There's also potential drawbacks. And thankfully, we don't operate under the same types of constraints that the LA board does because we didn't do a whole suite of TMDLs that potentially constrain some new ideas on the horizon.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines always when I used to do a lot of speeches was 10 million cigarette butts a day go into LA River. 10 million.
Yep.
And it just blows people's mind when you put that kind of number. And how do you regulate that?
It is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. And I do think, a lot of the policies, one of the reasons for the regional boards is we need the ability to craft different solutions for each of the regions, because certainly LA's problems are different from the problems of Chico and Fresno and Merced and you name it. So, but we do have the website up and running. So
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to show it off. It looks pretty cool from here.
Anything you want to go
Well,
through
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to present on the Rain Ready California. I did go through quite a bit, and what you'll find are the Rain Ready benefits page on protect, page on collect, and what you could do here. I think what's critical about our message is that there's a better way. We're wanting to change the idea of what we're doing today. Maybe isn't necessarily what we want to do in the future, and we want to see more of this protect and collect. Part of getting Rain Ready. but I'm happy that, thank you for your team for being able to get this up. And I'm happy that everyone's able to now view the site. But thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just want to say you guys have done such a great, wonderful, beautiful job marketing rainwater. You've taken out that old concept that it's filthy, and it's just a beautiful website. I love the branding, love the logo, and I love how you're educating the community and engaging with them. That's big, not just ledge and comms, but also actually engaging. And so I just thank you for your work, and really it's just a beautiful way to communicate.
Thank you. Really appreciate that comment.
I just want to thank you again for the presentation. Very informative, not to detract from the core of the Rain Ready conversation. I did want to touch on, Patrick, on the trash capture portion. As you know, I serve on a reclamation district here in the Sacramento region, and so does my colleague, Elena Lee Reeder. The Reclamation District 1000, it comprises about 50,000 acres in the Natomas Basin. And just to give you an order of magnitude on the amount of trash, at least our small little reclamation district in that instance has pulled out of the drainage ways, including Steelhead Creek and its tributaries that go on into the Sacramento River and onto the ocean. In calendar year 22, we had over 200 tons of trash. In calendar year 2023, it's 250, and those are approximations, but gives you an order of magnitude in the amount of trash that's really ending up in our rivers and ultimately the ocean, which is, when you think about it, quite depressing. Especially we have a powerful tool, the MS4 permit. Like you said, these aren't MS4 discharges that are allowing this trash to come into our watershed. But I think our MS4 permittees are a tool to help alleviate some of this. And I think, I'm a big proponent of, and I know it's the state board, but relaxing some of the trash capture to provide a tool, a mechanism, money, obviously to help assist with the cleanup of this trash that is coming from primarily the unhoused. And help alleviate, the pollution that ends up in our streams and waterways and ultimately the ocean. So that's just more commentary, not a question. So, but thank you very much for being here today. Very much appreciate it.
I just had one more question, maybe. I was curious about the opposition to the stormwater capture, the rainwater capture project from one of the communities. What kind of opposition are you facing? Are there?
Oh, well, it's been probably 7 years now since that happened. This is typically, not always, right? But it's communities that don't need a green space improvement are like, what are you doing in my neighborhood? So it was a space that they were, they're going to have to take out some trees, but then we're going to replant trees. Now there's construction in your neighborhood and everyone's just like, I don't want this. I'm happy with my neighborhood the way it is. And then it was the start of Nextdoor, and people were on Nextdoor with campaigns about this is going to cause liquefaction. Just like really not factually accurate comments at all, but it got neighbors fired up enough that the local city council was like, we don't want to pick this fight. Yeah. So there's some good basic education that has to happen in our communities. Yeah.
I'm glad that was an outlier. Hopefully that was an outlier. And then you mentioned the single-use plastic bag ban, but if I go into Target and buy something and I forgot to bring my bag, they still hand me a plastic bag. So what does that apply to exactly?
Yeah, there's a bill right now to answer your question, because as we all know, the fine print of what is in a bill is what winds up happening. So the one you get at Target now is supposed to be reusable, right? It's actually thicker plastic. So that was not addressed. It was through the first one. So there's a bill right now to kind of quote unquote close that loophole and what happened as a result. Yeah.
That's very interesting. Your bag got a lot heavier, so they could call it reusable.
Yes.
And there's actually more plastic as a result of that instead of less plastic, which is a whole I mean, I think in all of our permits, we realize if we design a metric, we have to be careful of unintended consequences.
Right.
Yeah.
I do reuse them when I, so, okay, thank you so much. You guys did a great job.
Listen, I have some
There we
comments
go,
here.
Denise.
Oh.
Go ahead,
Can
Denise.
you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for the presentation. I thought it was great, definitely informative, and I liked your approach to public education, changing that word from stormwater to rain ready. I think that's a key part of how you go about educating the public, for them to be simple, speak to them in a way that they can understand. All the technical jargon often gets in the way of really comprehending what you're trying to do. But I was definitely impressed with the presentation. And one of the questions I had was, you've spoken about the plastics, but I'm asking, what about the medicines and all the other stuff that goes into the stormwater, along with where we are in the Central Valley, where we have septic systems, and that also has an impact as we deal with flooding and all that kind of all of those issues. What can you tell us about how you might be able to address some of those issues?
That's a really good question. And I think, I mean, my honest answer, I don't think that one has popped up at the statewide scale all that much. And I think is why I like doing this too, because it puts other things on my radar screen about how we could approach it. Yeah. Because I mean, my first thing is, well, why is it there in the first place? And if it's septic, then the question would be, I know there's a lot of effort to convert folks who are on septic into the wastewater system, which helps to break that direct connection into an untreated waste stream. So, but thank you for raising that one.
And I recall it might be, I think the city of San Diego was fairly proactive about a number of measures where they found septics that they thought were decommissioned were still contributing to potential water quality impairments. But I think that's all in the mix of, what we ask our MS4s to do in the monitoring and maintenance of their systems. When they see a problem, they respond to it. And essentially the goal is to make sure that it is just stormwater in the system. And once you get to just stormwater in the system, then it becomes much more easy to greenlight the projects that would put that stormwater back into the aquifer. So it's kind of a multifaceted approach where you try and eliminate the products that are causing the problems before they enter the stream of commerce, and then you have mechanisms and responsible handling when they are in the stream of commerce. You have the infrastructure to keep them out of the stormwater infrastructure itself. And then you hopefully have the tools available to put that rainwater back into the ground in areas that can receive it. So certainly, Denise, I know your comment speaks to the fact that every single step along that chain needs diligence. So if there's medical waste or something like that, making it into the stormwater system, that's something that we have to be on top of.
Okay, and just one last comment regarding what you can do. You laid out a number of things that for the public to provide support, but I'm curious to know, are you ready to make this a dog and pony show and take this into rural communities where it really does need to be, education needs to be provided to the communities for them to understand and know what they can do themselves to be supportive and make the Rain Ready program successful? Because the Central Valley, last year, the flooding, it impacted all of us. And so if there's any way you can begin to do that dog and pony show in those communities now to give them the education. You already talked about people in communities where you're planting trees and people are not wanting that. But I'm talking about the communities that are even more significantly impacted and what they can do within the communities themselves. And how are you going to go about educating them on this? Because I think that's a critical piece right now. for the rural communities and for them to understand and how they can be a participant in helping make your program successful.
Yeah, thank you. So one of the things, the way the program is designed is as an umbrella campaign, that the messaging is the same sort of throughout the state, but our member agencies can tailor this message locally to what is relevant, right? So if you have a very urban community or very rural community, or, you know, in the Bay Area or Central Valley, whichever issue is really of interest to you in that local community, you can take that message of protect and collect and tailor it to that community so that it addresses the issue at hand, it addresses the audience at hand. So that's the overall intent. So we're at the, you know, we just launched the big part of it phase, and now we're developing toolkits for our members that they can take and start to implement this locally as well. And of course, I'm always thinking, like, what can we do at a statewide scale? How do we find grants on education? So if anyone has any ideas or any links or options, send them my way. Would love to. We have all sorts of things. I'd love to partner with schools and put out, you know, little things that Girl Scout troops and Boy Scouts can take and learn how to do this when we're not, you know, the passive way of looking for information. I just think there's so many things we can start to do now that we've got the framework kind of in place.
And I think from my perspective, Denise, I know some of the most successful projects that, even in terms of dollars, some of the most successful projects are ones that look very similar to, and it's an urban setting, but it's very different. But the slide that came up about the park that was installed in East LA, there are opportunities to do that type of infrastructure in some disadvantaged communities in the Central Valley, where there are not many parks, not many green spaces. So instead of having, and I don't want to knock them, but instead of having just an infiltration basin somewhere, maybe there's extra funds, maybe there's grant funding available to do a rainwater or stormwater capture system that, you know, can have a skate park or a basketball hoop or something else put into the mix. So it's a mix of both the hardscape and the infiltration components. Add in a little bit of, you know, desert ready plants, and you really have a very cool package that can be part of the solution, especially for those communities that lack those types of recreational activities right now.
As a side note, that's what we're advocating for in the climate bond, is to get funding for these projects, and especially for communities that don't have green space, because there's just so many benefits. That socioeconomic value report that we shared that shows that just the value goes through the roof for communities who don't have space. And at some point, you know, we all know fantastic, all these water quality benefits are happening, but the community, if you can give them something above ground that makes their lives better, I mean, it's just such a great, fantastic investment in communities.
Yeah, well, I just like to make a comment and toot the horn for the community of Allensworth in the southwest part of Tulare County. We're actually working with the Tri-County Water Authority, which is the GSA for our area. We're the only populated area in the GSA. And we've been working with them over the past few years, and they are actually going to do retention basins for the area to capture some of the stormwater as well as help with recharge. And it will be passive open space for soccer field or something like that, because we're in a community where we don't have much recreational activity at all. So we're creating that, and it will also serve and helping support our ecosystem that we have out there in the area. So yeah, I heard Patrick, you made mention of educating the schools and things. So I think that's important. In addition to that, you might want to consider the resource fairs that they have in the different communities, where you can have a booth set up and help educate the communities about it. Going into the schools and talking to the kids, I often say it's just like what happened with the recycling program. It was the kids that educated the parents about dealing with recycling. So now is another opportunity to educate the kids about rain ready and what we can do to prepare for that, and what we can do to prevent further contamination in that not groundwater, in that stormwater. So there are plenty of opportunities out there, but I do thank you for your presentation this morning. Like I said, it was insightful and great information that you shared. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Denise. And I think that concludes that agenda item.
Okay,
Thank you guys
thank you.
again. Really
Thanks so
appreciate
much.
it. And with that, I think we are about ready to adjourn this meeting unless there's any last minute comments. Okay, that concludes our business and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
It's not quite a closed session, but we'll head into the new San Joaquin room for a quick toast after the